Hey guys, I wanted to make this video. Um, I just came across this actually today and I just had to share it with you because a lot of us, are going on or we've been conditioned to believe that people are inherently good, that they may do bad things, but deep down inside they're good people. And I just want to give an example of why that's not necessarily true at all, specifically when it comes to white people. And this is going to challenge certain views that just because a white person marries a non-white person of color, like Native or Black, means that they're not racist, because it doesn't mean that at all, and that's going to be evidenced in the story that I'm going to present to you. Also, it's going to dispel the myth of a class issue as opposed to a race issue, because the whole purpose of this story, as you see in the headline, largely forgotten Osage murders reveal a conspiracy against wealthy Native Americans. If they were truly accepting of people that had similar means or resources, then this story should not exist. But because it's not about class, it's not about whether you're a person of color that's a millionaire or not. It's about white supremacy, the ability to exercise violence and try to dominate and abuse people who aren't white. That is the underlying issue. And there's other examples out there, even with people like Michael Jordan and Oprah Winfrey. But just to go into this, the Osage Indians had moved to an area of Oklahoma that they thought white people weren't going to be interested in because it was kind of rocky. So essentially, the reason why they came there is because they wanted to get away from white people who had been mistreating and abusing them, because they wanted the natural resources on the land in which they were living. Now, that's key. Now, after a certain amount of time on the land, it became evident that there were large oil deposits on the Osage land. And they were able to negotiate, an agreement that resulted in them being one of the richest populations in the world. If you're familiar with Black Wall Street, which was in Oklahoma as well, this was a similar situation, but because there were less natives, they had a higher concentration of wealth than even Black Wall Street. But unfortunately, the outcomes were unfortunately, resulted in death, which was similar to Black Wall Street. But just, to continue on, after they acquired their wealth, there were stories of them, buying and building mansions, having chauffeured vehicles, having servants, including white people as servants. And stories of this lifestyle was traveling around the United States. And it actually resulted in a growing resentment that white people had towards the natives that were wealthy. They didn't appreciate that they took advantage of their opportunity. They resented the fact that they didn't fit within, their ideal that natives should be beneath them, in the social strata. That they should not have white people working as servants for them. So that resentment grew to the point where the white people of the surrounding area developed a conspiracy, or they, became conspirators in the murder of many of the Osage people living within that community. Now, it wasn't an all-out massacre. It happened piece by piece. Now, there was one lady, and let's see, I'm going to find her name. It was Molly. Yeah. Her name is Molly Burkhart, and you probably can tell by her last name, she married a white man, and they actually had 2 kids together. And she was one of the very, very wealthy people. And she noticed that some of her family members were dying. Her sister was shot in the back of the head. Another family member just slowly started getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and they just discovered that it was poison. And these murders were continuing on and on. Piece by piece, it seems like they were committing genocide again in slow motion. Now, obviously, the natives, not being naive, concluded that there was something underhanded going on, and since they weren't able to appeal to the local authorities for assistance, because a lot of them were white, obviously, and resentful, and working in hand with the people actually committing the murders, they made attempts to elicit help from the federal government. So, but that came with other issues as well, and they actually had, a couple situations where white people who were willing to help out were in fact murdered themselves because they were getting in the way of, the primary white people, the conspirators, in practicing their white supremacy on these native people. So when I think about that, I think about it as, white people are so committed to practicing racism that they're willing to kill other white people. So bear that in mind as well. Now, kind of to make a long story short, and I do recommend actually listening to the audio because it's an NPR audio, and I will include the link under the video, as well as reading the book, which I definitely plan on doing. The author on the book is David Grann, Grann, and the name of the book is called Killers of the Flower Moon: The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI. So I'm looking forward to actually reading it myself. There's transcripts of the actual audio that's going to be included in the link below this video. But, just to kind of take everything into context, Molly's husband, whom she had 2 children with, was a part of the conspiracy. He was actually, responsible for the death of her family members because he was resentful of her wealth. He didn't see himself as part of her family. He saw himself as a white person first. And that's something that you really need to consider. A man that married a woman who was obviously a millionaire didn't show loyalty to his wife, didn't show loyalty to his children. He showed loyalty to other white people that were dedicated to abusing and stealing the wealth of these native people who have already experienced generations of mistreatment, prior to this, because this occurred in 1920s. So that's something to bear in mind, and to me that really, really resonates when I hear people like Cynthia G and Gus Renegade and others that say don't get involved, get in relationships with white people, and actually don't trust. You should be suspicious that every white person could be a racist. This speaks volumes to that. This is clear evidence that you have every reason to be suspicious of every white person. I don't care how nice they are, how many cookies they give you, how much coffee they bring to you. Their loyalty, deep down, is towards the white collective, and it's not to you. I don't care if you're married to them or not. There's plenty of evidence of white people being married to people who aren't white and using racial slurs and arguments and undermining them in all kind of other ways, and really inhibiting them from discovering from combating white supremacy racism to the degree that they can. So it's something to bear in mind. You definitely read the article and listen to the audio. It's truly shocking. And the more I learn, the more frustrating it is to find out, the true nature of your neighbors, the true nature of the people that you go to work with every day, the true nature of the dominant culture. So, if you have any questions, any comments, please leave them below. Until then, as I come across articles of this nature, I'm going to go ahead and post it and give my take on it. But, I was really naive about thinking that white people can be redeemed and they can, educate themselves out of their racism, when that's not the case at all. They're actually dedicated to maintaining the status quo, and that's what that whole collective group was designed to do. If you read Theodore Allen's book, Invention of the White Race. So, until then, just do what you can do, learn as much as you can to counter this system.